Romulus Space Station.
In space, no one can hear you scream. Classic tagline of the original horror movie that spawned a generation of terrifying sci-fi films. Alien Romulus aims to carry that legacy forward, blending the chilling atmosphere of deep space with the relentless horror that made the franchise a household name. While the Alien franchise has had multiple iterations in the current era, we haven't gotten a true return to form in decades. Before this, we had Prometheus and its sequel Alien Covenant, which were met with mixed reviews, with a lot of people considering these two a deviation for the franchise, in the last iteration and the initial run of the Alien franchise being 1997's disaster Alien Resurrection. The question on everyone's mind was, can Alien Romulus be that return to form while not being a soulless bout of nostalgia? Alien started off with a high point as many franchises do. That being said, it really was an exceptional release at its time and would go on to be one of the most influential movies of all time. Even Cowboy Bebop has an entire episode paying homage to the original classic. Following Alien was the 1986 release of Alien, headed by director James Cameron. While it had the suspense and horror of the original, Aliens massively increased the action and combat of the film, somehow successfully transforming a horrifying slow-burn classic into a timeless action film. Unfortunately, following this, the series would have a series of missteps ranging from complete B-movie schlock to mixed reviews at best. Alien 3 had a myriad of production issues, and its completely different setting was hard for people to adjust to. There are still some intriguing aspects of the film, but the best thing to come out of Alien 3 was William Gibson's Alien 3 script. Iconic sci-fi author William Gibson had an entire unproduced screenplay. It since was turned into a critically acclaimed series in itself that I'd recommend to any fan of the franchise. The last iteration in its original run was Alien Resurrection, which, while it's enjoyable in a silly or nerd way, is more or less objectively the worst film in the franchise. The 2000s Alien vs. Predator phenomenon is thought of fondly, if thought about at all. If you are about my age, these were probably the first films of either of the two you saw. While I personally enjoyed them out of nostalgia, and they appeal to that primitive part of your brain, you know, the one that starts making monkey noises at a death battle thumbnail, they largely just aren't good movies, and some people consider them worse than Alien 3 and Resurrection. Prometheus is probably the most fascinating entry in the franchise from my perspective. It's such a differentiation from what we had come to know, and a lot of people consider it to be more adjacent than any sort of continuation. There are a couple of issues with the film, but I largely think it successfully managed to usher Alien into the modern era, as well as bring an entire new audience to lore previously not shown in the film. As for Covenant, it felt like a bit of a misstep to me, having really high highs, but feeling completely bland at other points. It felt as if it was okay for almost everyone, but not great for anyone. This left us with a renewed interest in Alien, but no movie directly giving expression to the feeling people had been wanting. To understand what it was missing, you really had to go outside of the films and into a game. Alien Isolation came out in 2014, following the release of Prometheus. However, Alien Isolation was very titular in its gameplay and application. Alien Isolation became somewhat of a modern classic as it was an undeniably good and horrifying experience. It really managed to capture that dread and ominous terror of the original film. So when looking for inspiration, it makes sense director Fede Alvarez took from the game. While he didn't shy away from using new technology and continuing the franchise's growth, he wanted to capture that feeling by incorporating a modern take on that original feeling, even going as far as to seek out the 1986 special effects crew to work on the design. While all the attention to detail and refreshing approach to production is nice, did it actually work out? Well, the film managed to be the second highest box office in the franchise, making it a massive success. There have been a couple of criticisms, but in general people both casual and hardcore enjoyed the film. I myself enjoyed it and found it to perfectly capture some of those original feelings without feeling redundant. The attempts at nostalgia actually logically connect to the story or lore and don't take away your attention from the film. A character-driven approach really resonated with me, because while the Xenomorph is integral to the franchise, so is your Ripley or even Private Hudson. Any longtime or new fan of the series, I'd suggest you check it out as soon as possible. Alien Romulus follows the crew aboard the space station Romulus as they grapple with the deadly xenomorph outbreak and the sinister machinations of the Weyland-Yutani Corporation. The story centers on Rain, a miner, and her companions, including an android named Andy, as they uncover a black goo-like substance designed to perfect humans by merging xenomorph DNA. As the crew battles facehuggers and xenomorphs, key moments include Rain's desperate efforts to survive and Kay, a pregnant crew member, injecting herself with the black goo to save her baby. This leads to the birth of a human-xenomorph hybrid, sparking a deadly showdown that culminates in Rain's escape after defeating the creature. While going over the film, a couple of scenes stand out in particular. The first one that comes to mind is the introduction of Rain, played by Kaylee Spaney, and her brother Andy, played by David Johnson. The two would go on to be lead actors for the rest of the film, creating a unique dynamic never seen before in the Alien franchise. While Rain has echoes of other female protagonists in the series, Andy on the other hand might just be the most interesting character we've seen so far. Andy's interactions with both the other cast as a victim and decider of their fate really heightened the group dynamic and terror of the film. The other synthetic in the film is also interesting, playing into Andy's unraveling and actualization. This brings up the only controversial aspect of the film, of course being the use of CGI to bring back actor Ian Holm as a synthetic that mirrors Ash from the original movie. It does make sense that the synthetics might have a standard model and the family of the actor was completely on board, so I don't take a huge issue with it, but I understand if that is off-putting. One of my favorite scenes was when he appeared on the screen attempting to influence Kay to leave, completely destroyed but still attempting to work in the interest of the company. Beyond that, there are two grotesque pregnancy scenes that you can expect in pretty much any Alien movie at this point. The first one was more or less completely spoiled with Eileen Wu's character Navarro having a facehugger planted on her in the poster itself. While that scene is crazy and stress-inducing, the most memorable one I think for people is going to be at the very end of the film. Calling back a little bit to Alien Resurrection, Kay finally gives birth to a xenomorph, and it is a hybrid between a human and a xenomorph. These have appeared in Alien lore outside the films, but dubbed The Offspring, this is the first depiction of one we've seen in cinema, and it's truly terrifying. Getting an actual nearly 8-foot-tall basketball player to be adorned by practical effects, serving as this creepy and massive monstrosity. Now outside of the scenes themselves and the general atmosphere, there are a couple of other notable interesting bits about the technicals. Given that it's going to be progressively easier and easier to shy away from practical effects, I do think using them whenever possible, and going out of your way to use what many consider to be the best film in the franchise's special effects team, should be applauded. Nothing looked out of place, and if anything the CGI was used to accompany the grounded visuals, rather than contrast in an ugly way. The film was shot on the Alexa 35, which is a Super 35 digital camera. It has a smaller sensor than the full frame for recent blockbuster movies. This allowed the film to be shot in deep focus. Deep focus essentially means that there is equal clarity between the foreground, background, and middle ground. This is more difficult than what a lot of major films do, but you could tell that they really put a lot of attention to detail in the film, and they worked hard so that you can notice it while watching. Throughout the film, there are a lot of Easter eggs, some of them being more mundane or not known to a casual film-going audience, such as the inclusion of the Alien Isolation save points, while others are obviously more blatant, such as directly quoting lines from Aliens and showing the original Xenomorph and Nostromo wreckage. None of it feels out of character or over the top. If anything, it just shows you that they really went out of their way to respect the source material and not take what they're working on for granted. Overall, Alien Romulus is probably my second or third favorite film in the franchise from an enjoyability factor. I think this is going to be the case for a lot of people. If you're already a fan, obviously you probably have a favorite with nostalgia tied to it like I do with the original Alien, but this is undeniably a better watch than pretty much anything outside of Aliens itself. You can watch this with others and appreciate it both on a deep nerdy lore level and as a fun way to enjoy a night with your girlfriend. My favorite aspect about the film was probably Andy's character. I think that it added new dimensions to the franchise more than anything else in the film. Kaylee Rain also really solidified her as an actress in my mind because she was also in several other great projects this year. The movie really manages to remind the audience that it's not just about surviving, it's about what we've become in the face of unimaginable terror. So now that we've given our opinion, I'm curious what you guys have to say. While this film has been critically acclaimed, did you enjoy it personally? Are there any aspects of the film that took you out of it? Is there anything that would have made the film better, such as it taking more of a slow burn approach and building the characters even more like the original? Alien is probably my favorite franchise, so I really want to hear other people's opinions on this. Be sure to let us know down in the comments below. Thanks for making it until the end of the video, we really appreciate you sticking around. If you enjoyed the content, be sure to leave a like and consider subscribing to the channel. Here at Inner Spiral, we aim to cover the video games, shows, and movies we all love. So be sure to join us, and I'll see you next time in the Spiral.